Greetings to all our viewers. Today, we dive into the intriguing world of global economics. We focus on Russia's GDP and its impact on the world economy. So, let's get started. Russia, with its vast natural resources, particularly oil and natural gas, is a key player in the global economy. Currently, it ranks as the 11th largest economy by nominal GDP and the 6th largest by purchasing power parity. However, the country's GDP fluctuates due to a volatile currency exchange rate. Recent news suggests that Russia's budget deficit is projected to be 2% of GDP in 2023, a fact that could have significant implications for the country and the broader global economy. Despite facing sanctions and boycotts from the Western world, Russia's economy has shown resilience, demonstrating its importance as an energy superpower. Yet, it's also important to remember that Russia's economic health affects not just its citizens, but has ripple effects across the globe. So, as we see, Russia's economic health affects not just its citizens, but has ripple effects across the globe. Now, let's delve into the historical evolution of Russia's economy. To understand the present, we need to journey into the past. The Soviet era marked a significant phase in Russia's economic history. It was a time of grand plans and bold moves, a time when the economy was shaped by the state and the course of the nation was set by five-year plans. These plans were the beating heart of the Soviet economic machinery, guiding the development and growth of the nation. In the post-war period, the Soviet Union evolved into a major industrial power. The nation's economy was booming, industries were growing, and there was a sense of optimism in the air. But this high tide of prosperity was not to last. As the 1970s rolled around, the Soviet economy entered an era of stagnation. The growth slowed down, the optimism waned, and the once vibrant economy seemed to lose its momentum. The five-year plans that once propelled the nation forward were no longer enough to sustain the growth. This stagnation was a turning point in the Soviet economic history. It exposed the limitations of a centrally planned economy and highlighted the need for change. The economic challenges of the 1970s set the stage for the major economic reforms that were to come. The Soviet Union, as we knew it, was nearing its end. In 1991, the Soviet Union disintegrated, marking the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter in Russia's economic history. The centrally planned economy of the Soviet era gave way to a mixed market-oriented economy. This transition was a radical transformation, one that required a complete overhaul of the economic system. The Soviet era, with its ups and downs, laid the foundation for the economic landscape that was to emerge in Russia. It was a time of change and transformation, a time when the nation's economy was reshaped and redefined. The legacy of the Soviet era continues to influence Russia's economic trajectory, shaping its present and its future. With the disintegration of the Soviet Union in 1991, Russia braced itself for a radical transformation. The country was about to transition from a centrally planned economy, where the government controlled and directed all economic activity, to a market economy, where supply and demand would dictate the course of the economy. This was no easy task, and it came with its fair share of turbulence. In the early 90s, the government introduced a series of reforms, collectively known as shock therapy. These reforms aimed to swiftly dismantle the old socialist economic system and replace it with a market-based economy. Key components of this plan included the liberalization of prices and the mass privatization of state-owned enterprises. However, the privatization process was far from smooth. Often, it led to the concentration of wealth in the hands of a select few, creating a new class of ultra-wealthy individuals, often with strong political ties. This rapid and often chaotic privatization resulted in a sharp increase in economic inequality and a decline in living standards for many Russians. Just as the country was grappling with these monumental changes, it was hit by the 1998 financial crisis. The government's difficulties in collecting revenues, coupled with its dependence on short-term borrowing, led to a severe devaluation of the Russian ruble and a default on its debt. The crisis resulted in a further decline in living standards and a rise in mortality rates. But it wasn't all gloom and doom. The crisis also offered an opportunity for Russia to implement pro-growth economic reforms. The devaluation of the ruble made Russian exports more competitive, helping the country recover from the crisis faster than many had expected. This turbulent period in Russia's history was a turning point, setting the stage for the economic scenario we see today. As we crossed into the 21st century, Russia's economy experienced significant changes. The dawn of this new era brought with it a wave of economic growth that lasted nearly a decade, from 2000 to 2008. This period was marked by a surge in commodity prices, particularly for the natural resources Russia is rich in, such as oil and natural gas. This boom in commodities played a key role in bolstering the nation's economy. During this time, a notable shift occurred in the financial landscape of the average Russian citizen. Disposable income saw a substantial rise, breathing new life into the consumer market. As more money circulated in the hands of the people, consumer credit also saw an uptick. This growth in personal wealth and spending power contributed to a decrease in the poverty rate, improving the quality of life for many. However, it wasn't all smooth sailing. The increase in disposable incomes and consumer credit was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it stimulated economic activity and growth. On the other, it led to rampant inflation, a problem that Russia has grappled with for years. Inflation erodes the value of money, making goods and services more expensive and potentially reversing the gains in poverty reduction. Despite these challenges, Russia's economy showed resilience. By 2007, the World Bank declared that Russia's economy had achieved an unprecedented level of macroeconomic stability. This was a significant milestone, marking the country's recovery from the economic turmoil of the 1990s and its emergence as a global economic player. In conclusion, the early 21st century was a time of economic growth and change for Russia. Fueled by rising commodity prices and an increase in disposable incomes, Russia's economy grew and evolved, albeit with the persistent challenge of inflation. Despite facing numerous challenges, Russia's economy demonstrated an unprecedented macroeconomic stability by 2007. Now, let's examine the factors that have led to the recent decline in Russia's GDP and what this means for the global economy. Firstly, the ongoing conflict in Ukraine has dealt a significant blow to Russia's economy. The subsequent Western sanctions have further strained Russia's economic health. These sanctions, aimed at penalizing Russia for its actions, have made it difficult for the country to trade and do business on a global scale, thus impacting its GDP. The second major factor in Russia's economic downturn is its heavy reliance on natural gas exports. Russia is a major exporter and producer of natural gas and oil, and changes in these markets can have a sizable impact on the nation's economic stability. For instance, a halt in natural gas exports can lead to a decrease in the country's GDP. This brings us to the potential implications on the global economy. The decline in Russia's GDP doesn't just impact Russia, it has a ripple effect on economies worldwide. For instance, Italy, which relies heavily on Russian natural gas, could see nearly a 2% decrease in its own GDP if Russia were to stop its gas exports. In addition, the predicted budget deficit in Russia's economy, covered mainly through borrowing, can create a domino effect, influencing global financial markets and potentially leading to increased volatility. It's also worth noting that the sanctions and the conflict in Ukraine have led to a reorientation of trade and economic alliances. Countries are seeking alternative energy suppliers, which could shift the dynamics of global energy trade. To put it simply, the decline in Russia's GDP is not just a national concern, it's a global one, affecting economies far and wide. The interconnectedness of today's global economy means that what happens in one country can have far-reaching impacts. The decline in Russia's GDP is not just a national concern but a global one, affecting economies far and wide. As we wrap up our discussion on Russia's GDP, it's clear that the country's economic health has significant repercussions globally. We've journeyed through the Soviet era and seen how Russia's economy evolved from a planned system to a market economy. We've witnessed the economic growth and stability of the early 21st century, driven by rising commodity prices, and understood the role of major players such as the Ukraine, G7, and the USA in shaping Russia's economic narrative. However, we also noted the recent decline in Russia's GDP and its potential implications. From affecting international trade to impacting global energy markets, the ripple effects are far-reaching. These economic fluctuations highlight the interconnectedness of our global economy and underscore the importance of understanding these dynamics. We hope you found this deep dive into Russia's economy informative. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to our channel and share this video with others. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more insightful discussions.